Hey there, people. We're gonna get right into this discussion. So, in the early years of me running a YouTube channel, I did a discussion on Nintendo having a 3DS player or utilizing the Wii U in a way to allow it to play 3DS software. And this was back during the days when my channel was called G.I.G. So I think that would have been within like the first 3.5 years of me actively running a channel. But to get to my point, I had a lot of personal misconceptions about how that would work. Now, obviously, I think I did say something about a hardware solution, but I really didn't talk like in depth about the idea. I don't know if I can just yet, but I could probably do better than I would have done back then, especially with learning different things and adapting to newer info that I have. So I could do a much better job of actually talking about the 3DS or 3DS software being utilized by a Wii U. And it's something that, I would have just thought back then would have just worked because I didn't really understand the differences between different types of architecture. Because I could have just assumed, and I kind of did, that 3DS was a similar hardware architecture to the Wii U. I was completely wrong, but I did assume that because I didn't know any better. Good thing passages of time allow you to actually, add to information you've had and adopt new information. So I do believe that the Wii U could have, and still could if somebody would be willing to put in the work, played and displayed 3DS games from itself, like directly from its own hardware. But there is currently a solution if you have a modified Wii U and modified 3DS, at least as far as I remember, is both of them have to be modified, and you have to be on the same Wi-Fi connection for them to work. But it would allow you to utilize your Wii U and gamepad to display your 3DS on the television screen and gamepad respectively. Which the top screen being single would be 5:3 displayed over your television, but then again, I think it would switch to its 15:9 format technically, because if you're utilizing both screens on the 3DS, obviously not both screens. If you're utilizing the 3D aspect of it, the stereoscopic 3D, it goes from being 400 by 240 to 800 by 240, but it's in a condensed manner. So both eyes individually see a different image. That's how it ends up working. That's why it looks how it does, because your eyes are seeing two separate angles of the same thing. But if it were to be blown up onto a television, it would just be a flat image stretched out. I think technically, I could be wrong on that. Obviously, if I'm wrong on that, somebody's probably going to correct me. But either way, the image would be stretched from 3DS screen to your television screen. For the bottom screen, it's not so hard because I believe that is 320 by 240, and it would just be getting stretched to 640 by 480, which is still the same 4:3 aspect ratio if math is right. But enough of the rambling on that side of things. As I've stated, I do believe that a hardware solution is possible, and I do believe a fully software-enabled solution is possible. For the hardware side of things, it would take someone taking the guts of a 3DS, preferably a new 3DS, a new Nintendo 3DS, and putting said guts into a little box that would allow you to insert your 3DS game cards into it and powering it on, but it would have to be plugged into the Wii U through USB. And more than likely it would have to use a separate power source in order to be able to work, because the USB ports on the Wii U don't output that much power, because it is a low energy console built for efficiency. So you'd have to have a separate power source, either plugging it into a wall or having two USBs to plug it into both ports, or two ports on the Wii U, in order for it to be physically recognized. Now that would obviously come with either needing to have a software disk that you insert into the Wii U that will run all of the 3DS OS features and things on the Wii U, or an app that you download to the Wii U that you would then open that would push all of the info from that little machine to your Wii U and translate it to your television and gamepad. Both of those, I think, are a viable way to do it, because it's technically a combined hardware and software solution, but it's because the hardware is there to do the processing, because all of the parts of the hardware are the same. You're basically just using your Wii U as a way to display it, and the input commands are then translated to your Wii U's gamepad controller. That's it. That's the easier solution among the two things, because all it requires is you having the software that looks for that particular piece of hardware and then translates what that hardware is doing to the machine it's being played on and then onto the screen. There's not as much work that would go into that in particular, because you're not having to recode the libraries of the Wii U to do it. It's basically just another layer thrown on top of the Wii U's current layer. That's it. It's just another software layer. Now, it probably wouldn't be as difficult as software emulation, because again, you have the hardware doing the work itself. You have all of it being controlled from that little box or whatever you want it to be doing it. There could also be a docking solution for a physical 3DS, which will probably be a little bit more difficult because of the different physical models of the 3DS. You have the 3DS XL, or the 3DS, 3DS XL, new 3DS, new 3DS XL, 2DS, and new 2DS XL. that's a lot of different hardware configurations to try to figure out to work with a docked solution. And it would also make it difficult because you'd still have to have a way to have the game cart slot be available to load physical games into. So I don't think that would be the best working solution, unless the dock was basically just a cord that plugged into your 3DS that plugs it directly into your Wii U. That would be the only other way that could work. Where you could keep your 3DS either closed or have the screen be off and just have it display over the USB to the Wii U and then have everything run from there. Again, but I think that would be a little bit more difficult just because, again, the different hardware configurations of 3DS. But I do believe that one is also possible. It takes a little bit more work. With the little pre-fabbed box that's just set to do whatever, wouldn't be as hard because then everyone would be able to get that box and just put it next to their Wii U and do everything with it. The only other problem with that would be that every 3DS has its own individual profile. You don't really exchange profiles back and forth unless you're setting your 3DS up to transfer all of your data from one device to the next. That could be a complete pain in the behind. So that was one other issue that would be preventing this from particularly happening. But I do think that there would have been able to be a solution, but probably would have had to fundamentally change how the account system worked. And at that point, it was too late. It was way too late because you couldn't hop your account around from device to device like you can now with the Nintendo Switch. I mean, you could. The process was just a lot more complicated. And I doubt anyone would want to have to set their 3DS up to transfer data by loading it onto their SD card, take the SD card out, put it into the dummy box, then boot it up in order to be able to get everything going. It would be nonsensical, honestly. It'd be a lot more work than it would be worth. But it is still something that would be possible. Probable, maybe not, but possible, yes. Definitely possible. But next is the complete software solution. The complete software solution. Now this would require an app that would load up on the Wii U and then turn the Wii U into just a massive 3DS. The biggest problem with this is that would require complete rewriting of the software libraries. Because there's no hardware to do the specific things that the hardware does. And being that the 3DS is an ARM processor versus the ARM architecture versus the Wii U, which was PowerPC, even if the PowerPC components are more capable than the ARM components, the code is still drastically different. And it will require somebody taking a lot of their time to sit down and rewrite, or not rewrite necessarily, but write in bits of code that allow the Wii U to translate the 3DS's code. It would take a shit ton of time. A lot. Because, again, there's no physical hardware to look toward. So you'd have to create an emulator within the Wii U's firmware, basically, to allow it to basically turn itself into a big 3DS. Now, obviously, it could potentially do that because it can do DS. But DS has obviously a smaller footprint than 3DS. And I don't even think that the DS is ARM architecture. So give me 1 second. Okay, I did just do a check. It is an ARM processor, much smaller ARM processor than what went into the 3DS. So there is some sort of stepping stone to work with. Now I think about it, because they had to utilize that in order to do what the 3DS does anyway. So that could have been used as the stepping stone going forward, but you'd have to have direct access to that emulator as a software engineer in order to start creating what would be needed in order for the 3DS side of things to take over. That could be the workaround, but it would still be very time consuming no matter who did it. It would still be very time consuming. I'm just actually surprised that I didn't take the time to look into that before, because I thought that the 3DS was specifically the ARM hardware and the DS was a different type of processor. But I should have looked that up. I should have looked that up prior to this, but I didn't. But hey, I learned in real time. So they could technically use the DS emulation software as a potential stepping stone. That doesn't mean that everything would just work. It would just mean that, hey, this is a way we could work our way into it. But even then, that might not be the best solution. You'd probably be better off just going directly to the hardware and to the firmware and working within that, versus trying to use the DS emulator, because that might just overcomplicate things for someone trying to sit down and read through it and figure out how to make it work. Because it's not like the DS itself is capable of running anything from the 3DS. It's not like a DS by itself is going to take Super Mario 3D Land and be able to play and display it, because again, there's more coding libraries for the 3DS that don't apply to the DS. So I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. I probably am. I'm going to admit that right now. I probably am very wrong on that. But I don't think I'm wrong on the Wii U being able to take the software of the 3DS and be able to play it or display it. It will basically come down to how they're doing it. Now, if you're not going to throw all of the 3DS's OS features in there, you're just going to have the Wii U translate the game code and play the games, that will probably be a lot less of a burden on the hardware to do it. Because with the OS features comes a lot of other stuff. And it's not like you're just going to pick up your Wii U and walk around with it outside all day in order to build up Nintendo 3DS coins. That would be that would be a funny image to see somebody just running around carrying their Wii U like it's a suitcase, or a little folder or something. The image was just funny to me. But I do think that it would be plausible for it to be able to at least play the games. The major issue does just come down to that account system, because of how it was structured for the 3DS to not allow you to easily transition from one to the next. And I get that's probably because they didn't want people pirating things. But goodness, does that inhibit the ability to have a specific player to play 3DS games on that display. So actually, the solution of potentially docking your 3DS might have actually been the better solution. then you don't run into the issue with the account because all of your stuff is still there. And you can still play your physical games. It's just the complication of the different configurations of the 3DS are the bigger problem. So the middle solution is actually potentially the best solution. And if somebody can figure out how to have your 3DS directly connected to your Wii U and then display to your Wii U and gamepad, that would... It's a little complicated. Not a little. It's a lot complicated. But it would be the best work around for it. Again, there is currently a solution for streaming your 3DS to your Wii U. For anybody who's interested in doing that, there are plenty of video tutorials on YouTube right now. And you can pretty much look it up online. Which that is very similar to what I'm talking about. It would just be a direct connected hardware and streaming through the USB port to display everything versus doing it over Wi-Fi. I think the major issue comes down to potentially bandwidth. But if that could be figured out, I think it would work. And I was just doing a discussion, actually let me think through it. Because originally I was thinking that the little box would be the best solution. But that's pretty much wrong. From the overall perspective, being able to use your own 3DS directly does save a lot of other issues. The other way around, it's good if you wanted to just use that as your 3DS. Like, that could be your complete 3DS solution for those who wouldn't want to play the 3DS as a small handheld, but would still like to be able to play the games. But for those that want the versatility of both, then you have to be able to connect your 3DS directly to your Wii U in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, thinking through it. Anybody who's well versed in that, I know I screwed up somewhere. I don't know exactly where I screwed up, but if you're willing to talk to me about it, tell me about it. I'm willing to take in the information because, again, for me, this is a learning process. I'm more interested in learning about how these things work and how they interact than just saying, "Oh, I know everything." But I'm definitely interested in learning. Because you can't tell me it's not possible. I know it is possible. I also know it would take a lot of work. I just don't know the work it would take. And that's the thing. But I think I did hit on what would be the potential best solution if it were to be done. And I'm also understanding now why Nintendo potentially didn't spend the money in R&D to make this happen. Because it basically would have killed it would have been a waste of money. It would have been a waste of money for them. From my perspective, at the time, as the consumer, it would have been great. It would have been awesome because then you'd have access to an even bigger library of stuff. But for Nintendo, that cost probably wouldn't have been worth it. Unless they could have got this device down to about $100, and they probably couldn't have done that. Unless it was a specific piece of equipment designed to allow you to dock your 3DS and then display it to the Wii U. And the cost of it would have had to have been low cost in order to get people interested in using it. And if it wasn't low cost enough to get people interested in using it, then there would have been no point. And that's probably what they figured out well before I did back then. It's really interesting to really go back over and think over some of the things that I said before, because of the higher level of ignorance I had back then compared to now. So I may go back to several things I have talked about before and go back over them specifically, because I do know I have to do another discussion for my what if for the Sega Saturn, because I had some things wrong in that. But discovering that I was way off base with this in the middle in the middle of actually talking about it, actually that's highly enlightening. And again, I'm a person that likes learning. I like getting new information in, even with things that I have talked about before. And yeah, this discussion was definitely more technical than I would have been able to do back then. But with me gaining that extra knowledge, it made some things more acutely stand out to me. So, but I would like to see the tech heads have the discussion about this. If you're on YouTube, have the discussion down in the comments. If you listen anywhere else, try to go, like, I know it's displayed wherever my podcasts are. There is a link if you would like to drop a message, where you can drop a message. It'll pop up on Spotify, and then I'll be able to listen to it. And I could even do a discussion about the replies, about the responses, if anyone's interested. But that's if people do that. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening to me ramble on and be very long. Keep your eyes and ears open with stuff for me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy, and I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in. If you would be interested in supporting my efforts in content creation, please head on over to Amazon and look up The Game Idea Guy Presents Gaming Word Search, and you will find both Volume 1 and Volume 2 up for sale. Thank you very much once again, and I hope to be able to create more content for you in the future. Peace out.